I identify as a queer black woman.
I identify as bisexual.
I identify as gender non-binary, so I use they, them pronouns. I also identify as a lesbian, so women.
I identify as bisexual.
I identify as bisexual.
I identify as asexual.
And I identify as bisexual.
I identify as bisexual.
I am bisexual.
It's a queer transgender man.
I identify as bisexual.
Identify as queer bisexual.
I identify as a woman, Latina, Ecuadorian American.
I was born in Korea. I came here, and now I'm an American citizen, so I'm an immigrant, technically.
I'm a poet, I'm an activist, I'm a reader, I'm a community organizer, I'm a mentor. I guess I identify as a leader.
An uncle. A person who works with students. I don't know the name for that, so
Yeah.
maybe a teacher. Counselor. Jamaican. Good guy.
I identify as queer. I identify as like a scientist, biologist, an artist. My family is really important to me, so like I identify as a sister and a daughter.
I also identify as a Christian. I'm from the Caribbean. I'm Jamaican.
Jewish, I'm Russian. I'm a woman. I'm a feminist, progressive. I'm a psychology major, future therapist.
A lot of people think, well, first, a lot of people don't think bisexuality is real.
Some that I've like heard or encountered is that like bisexual people are greedy, that they can't be in relationships because of that greed and like wanting to date everybody, which like isn't the case.
Another misconception is that like we just don't like men, and I love men.
I guess that because I look more feminine, that I can't like legitimately be queer because I haven't had enough queer experiences. I'm not like gay enough. The whole like being gay enough thing definitely looms large in my mind.
When people say that like trans men aren't men or trans women aren't women, like that's just so dumb. Because then it like, I mean, what makes a man or what makes a woman? And people say like the ability to give life. And I'm like, so what does that mean for women who have medical issues where they can't give birth or they have consistent miscarriages, or men who are sterile? Like, what does that even mean? Or people who adopt. So I think that makes people challenge my manhood a lot, which like, I think that shows how insecure they are in their own masculinity, to be threatened by how secure I am in mine.
I think the biggest one for me is that sexuality is a preference. I think it's bizarre, especially because I just have evidence that it's not, because I got baptized 3 years ago, and the first thing my pastors tried to do was turn me straight. And I convinced myself that I could do it. And 2 months later, I, fall in love with a girl again.
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest misconceptions when I tell people that I'm non-binary is if I am dressing femininely or if I'm dressing like versus masculinely, or I'm trying to like achieve androgyny. I think that typically when performing these typical like gender roles, such as being feminine or like being hypermasculine, I think that I get a lot of pushback. I think again, I have a little bit of invalidity.
They conflate sexual orientation and gender identity.
I guess like another one that does sort of align with me is that asexuals are childlike, because just like, oh, well, if you're not interested in sex, then you must be like just this baby that needs to be protected or something like that.
Yeah, it's always like, I never know whether it's a kind of appropriate in a conversation to mention it. I always feel like I'm hiding something if other people don't necessarily know it.
I always get a little bit nervous still, just because I think especially with something, as a black woman, like a lot of my identity is very visible. Like I'm clearly black. People seem to identify me as a female and things like that. And so when it comes to talking about those aspects of my identity, I'm not really like revealing anything. But when it comes to me being queer, a lot of times like you don't know how people will react. Like sometimes people just take it in stride, they chillin'. Sometimes people will be like, oh, like girlfriend, or like, oh, something like that. And it's like, and you have to like, yeah. And they're like, okay. So like you know that they peeped it. Sometimes people, I haven't had this experience personally, thankfully, but people get really preachy sometimes and like can say some really hurtful things. So you never. So when it's people that I don't really know well, I'm not always sure how to approach it. So a lot of times I just use like gender neutral kind of pronoun, like significant other, like partner and stuff like that. But then there are also other times in other spaces where it just feels really natural. So I think it is weird because like you're constantly revealing this part of yourself that like you've already accepted and have come to terms with. So, yeah.
Yes, but it depends on who I'm coming out to. Like I've recently started talking about trying to come out to like the rest of my family members or even my stepfather, who's played a crucial role in my life, and that alone, like holy crap. But I don't know. Like I have baby cousins. Like what are my uncles and my aunts gonna think of me? You know, like do they think that I'm gonna have a sort of impact on their children? Like you never know how people are gonna react or how accepting and welcoming they're gonna be. And I don't know if it's gonna create a barrier that's just gonna stay up for a very long time and maybe be dismantled in the future.
But there have been a few times where I've been in class with someone who is openly against LGBT rights, and it's been hard to hold my tongue because I'm naturally opinionated and a little bit argumentative, but it's also been terrifying to speak up either because when, a guy in my history class says, I think, gay people shouldn't be allowed to exist, how do you speak up and say, you're talking about me?
Choosing people that I feel safe around to come out to is definitely like a consistent battle, especially because I use they them pronouns, I think, because I don't know, if I want someone to use my pronouns, it almost automatically outs me. But I definitely do feel like that anxiety and that nervousness about if I'm coming out to honestly like someone of like an older generation or a more conservative person, and that sucks, like trying to hide that part of myself. But like each time I do it, like the fear I feel versus like the the happiness I feel afterwards, regardless of their reaction, like I think it's worth it.
If your family is not providing you the love that you want, which is acceptance and comfort, you shouldn't care what they view love as, because obviously it's not genuine enough to care about your well-being or whatever makes you happy. So do whatever makes you happy, live your own life, take your own path. Your family's path is not yours, it's theirs, and all they can do is guide you with their path, but they can't force their path on you.
As out as I am now, so a lot of my close friends at home, some of them still don't know, because I've never said it directly, because I don't feel I need to explain myself. But I remember being in 7th grade and having the same type of situation of feeling maybe I don't have that system or I don't have those friends. And the best thing to do is that you always have that one person who you can talk to. And depending if it's a family member, if it's a friend, if it's just really an acquaintance that you know at school, just to start the conversation, because it is so hard to start, but once it's started, it gets so much better from there.
I think that this is like a pretty cheesy piece of advice, but like trust your gut.
I remember being in a place where I'm like, I really don't want to be this way. I wasn't proud of it. It was because I never grew up thinking like, oh, this is a great thing. No, I grew up where it was like, if you are, you are, but like you don't want to be. And if you are in that same situation, I mean, I wish I can go back and do it sooner, because I feel like I'm just coming into my own last year and this year. Do it as soon as you can. If your parents really do love you, they will respect you. It does take time. I'm not going to pretend like my mom was gung-ho about it at first. She was accepting, but it did take time, but it will get better no matter what the situation is. No matter who you are, where you're from, it will get so much better. You'll surround yourself with love, with people who really care about you, respect you, appreciate you. And, I mean, if it worked for me, it can work for anybody. So, yeah, that's what I would say.
I think that taking the time that you need, that you feel like you need, is very important to come out. Like, it's a big process of accepting it and, you know, having your mind think of all the possible reactions of people and all the possible ways that you can be hurt, but also, you know, not be hurt, because there's always, you know, pros and cons, and you never know how people are going to react. But just making sure that you go through the process of acknowledging who you are, what others mean to you, and like, there's never going to be a right time, ever. But taking that time to be in that mental space and the emotional space, because it can be very exhausting once you get there, and once you're there, once you're out, like, that's it. You're living, the moment you tell people who you are truly is the moment that you start living your truth fully. And at first it can be fucking hard, but once you're there, that's it. You're in the light. Like, you're doing you, and no one's gonna actually penalize you for that, without you letting it get to you, you know?